this is Jocelyn Hilling. Thank you for watching this video. This particular video is going to be about sexual abuse, trauma, and the mental health field. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about my own personal experience, as well as some research from the mental health industry and other, I call them innovators of science and holistic healing. Sexual abuse and trauma, it gets locked inside of us on a deep, deep level. We have a heart, we have a body, we have a mind, we have a soul, and we have a spirit. Many people's minds are filled with information, tons of it. My brain was. I have what you would call savant syndrome, a form of autism. I did not know that. It's not in the DSM. There's not enough research on it. And also, there is not anything in the DSM stating anything about intuition or highly sensitive people. I was born gifted. I was born with heightened sensitivity to things, and I was also born with complex trauma in utero. Peter Levine, who specializes in developed somatic experiencing, did research on animals as well as human beings, meaning studies. He noticed that animals release their trauma right away. Human beings don't do that. We store it and we wait until we feel safe. If you're a person struggling with trauma, whether it's sexual abuse, PTSD, even trauma from the dentist, EMDR, somatic experiencing, biofeedback therapy, all of those things can help your brain and help your body release trauma. But then there's trauma on a cellular level that we can't see. As an intuitive myself, I call this karmic trauma. I call this deep trauma. It locks in our heart chakra. It locks in this space, and we're unable to release it. Our mind is in a three-dimensional reality. Our mind stores information, data, concepts, beliefs, and stories. Our mind is designed to make sense out of things. It's like a computer database. Our body is a primal mechanism. It's like an animal. And our body feels. Your mind feels nothing. And then you have what I would call ego. Ego is the beautiful ladder that helps us navigate through our mind and conscious space to help us get connected with our heart, with our soul, and with our spirit. I was in the helping professions, in the mental health field specifically, for about 18 years. I dedicated my life to that industry. I basically worked with every type of population you could imagine. Pedophiles, sex offenders, sociopaths, victims, you name it, I've worked with it. I listened and worked with the hardest possible cases. I did not take people that were so-called easy. I didn't take people with depression or anxiety. I took the clients that wanted to take their life every second of the day or somebody else's. I took the people that were going to hurt someone or hurt themselves. And I took the people that did not know how to handle what they had. I was basically the person you would call if nobody else could help you. And these are the clients that I worked with, and this is how I developed my theory. I wrote a theory when I watched ego work. And I watched the mind work. I was born with a gift called ESP. I was also born with, like I said, as a highly sensitive person. You may classify this as HSP. At the age of 5, I suffered death and woke up alive. You can call this a near-death experience of natural causes because my body was so sick. When I woke up, I was embraced in the world of what you would call the dead. I saw spirits. I had dreams. I downloaded prophecies. I was extremely gifted. And my mother knew this, and so did my family, and I was raised in a different atmosphere. I also suffered child abuse and sexual trauma and every other type of trauma you could imagine. But I didn't know it all because when you're raised in an environment that is normal for you, that's normal for you. I didn't actually know I suffered child abuse until I was in my 30s. And my therapist said, Jocelyn, what you're describing is child abuse. And I said, oh, okay. No big deal. About 24 hours later, I was in my home and I had this hit happen. And I was like, oh my God, I did. I suffered child abuse. Later, a lot of my memories started to come out. And when I was 17, memories started to come out. They came out through my dream spaces, and I would share this stuff with my mother. My mother also suffered intense trauma, and she told me to forget about it, pretend like it never happened, because my life is okay. Trauma can be forgotten, and it can be repressed. I still personally have repressed memories that I don't know about. Approximately 3 years of my life as a teenager, I suffered from what I would call disassociation. Disassociation is also a gift. It helps us survive. I myself am a fighter. So when things come at me, I usually fight. Certain types of trauma, our best chance of survival is not always fighting. Sometimes it's playing dead. And if you've experienced trauma and you've had a scenario where you're lying there and you're thinking, just scream, just move, just run, and your body doesn't, there's a reason. And then later we beat ourselves up about it. What if I just did this? Why couldn't I have just done that? Trauma gets locked in our body, it gets locked in our heart, and then our mind likes to make sense out of it. In this current time, in this current date, I have what I would call vicarious trauma from the mental health field. And my doctor said I needed to retire. I couldn't listen to any more stories of hurt and trauma because it was affecting me greatly. I have what people would call GIA, globally high intensely activated trauma, that I was born with. And I have now healed this through shamanism. And I had shamans help me heal because the medical industry could not help me. Neither could the mental health industry. Basically, I was a public speaker, and I had a nonprofit, I had a for-profit, and they were all around holistic healing and health. I was a Christian woman, still am, and I had a spiritual awakening. And during that awakening, I looked like I was crazy, like I had a psychotic break. And the only thing in our DSM and our world in America is medication to handle someone like me. So they throw me in places. My body doesn't respond like that. And I was raised in places like that. So it caused more and more trauma for me, making it harder to speak, harder to move, harder to do anything, hard to trust a soul. So I decided to live in silence and move to a place where I could heal myself and have people hold space for me. Our industry, our culture is built on ease, and it's built on a mind that wants to make sense out of things. When we don't share realities with each other and we're unable to share our reality with another person, the other people get in fear, and they'll pretty much do anything and everything to try to save you because they feel as though you're hurting. When I was experiencing my so-called psychotic break, I was also experiencing telepathy and mind reading, as well as hearing spirit, divine spirit lead me. And the last time I went into a hospital, I heard spirit say, you can heal your own brain. Don't take this medication, Jocelyn, it's hurting you. As an intuitive, sometimes medications will block our third eye. And I have cosmic consciousness. Basically, medication feels like it kills me. Not only that, I felt like they were still missing something. They're throwing diagnoses on me: schizophrenic, bipolar, multiple personalities, borderline, you name it. I've been diagnosed with it my entire life. Something wasn't adding up. Most of the time when a person gets a diagnosis, they feel relief because somebody found the answer. I never felt that. I never felt relief. I felt as though people were missing information. And they were, because not one person my entire life ever asked me my perception of events until I saw a trauma specialist. that diagnosed me with GIA, globally high intensely activated trauma. She was the same woman that told me I suffered child abuse. And I saw another clinician 10 years ago, 12 years ago. She said, "Jocelyn, you're a victim of domestic violence and sociopathology." I said, "That's not possible. I'm an educated clinician." She said, "You're a victim of domestic abuse." I didn't know that. And I'm on the stand testifying against my perpetrator, stuttering, unable to actually speak a word. Because Jocelyn herself is a fighter. My body, though, my body and my heart, it was scared and it didn't feel safe. I continued on my healing path and I chose to get my blood work done. And what was interesting is my blood work showed I was medication resistant and that antipsychotics made me worse. All medication made me worse. It also showed that I had no genes for depression, no genes for schizophrenia, no genes for any of this stuff. It showed that I was born with anxiety and inherited cortisol hormones from my parents, basically meaning I was born with trauma. And that's when she said, "You need to retire, Jocelyn, and choose a different career if you're going to continue to work, because you're going to die this way." After my healing with shamans, I realized that I have a form of autism called savant syndrome. Basically, I use my entire brain, and I have a heightened sense of awareness, and I see symbols, and I see colors. I don't function like the average person, and that's okay, and I'm okay with that. And when I got that diagnosis, that's when I felt relief. Many times, other people are placing labels on us and diagnoses on us because they have no other explanation. One thing is for certain in the mental health field. Throughout all my time in it, every single condition I have come across, besides the autism spectrum, is because they all have trauma related, meaning almost every condition you can trace back to some type of trauma. So what is trauma? Trauma is a perception of an event or scenario in which you don't have control. That's it, where you feel fear. I personally was trained in a way as a young child, because both my parents were highly traumatized, to be hypervigilant, meaning I'm always aware of everything around me. I was also trained to fight, and I was also trained to speak the truth. And when I chose to speak the truth to my family, to my friends, to other people, they didn't like what I had to say because it challenged their belief systems on a deep level. Imagine if you've been living your whole life in a three-dimensional reality of suffering and pain, where a medication can take away that pain. And you can take that medication for your whole life. And then you meet someone like me that says, "I've got great news for you. There's ways to heal without that." And it may take time, and it may take energy, and you may have to persevere through struggle. But if you're one of those people that struggled intense trauma, intense abuse, and you don't have the answers, and you don't feel relief, and you keep getting labels that don't make sense, please reach out. There's another thing that correlates with trauma, and that's pain, physical pain. In my early 20s, after I had healed, supposedly, my body started to break. I started to have symptoms of MS. I would lose even control over my bladder in my early 20s. My vision would go blind. My hands would cramp up and not be able to work. I couldn't even work a pen. And I was trying to figure out what was going on because I lived a very healthy lifestyle at this point. And every single time I started to conquer one part of my health, something else would break. In my 30s, I was basically had fibromyalgia, trigeminal neuralgia, rotting teeth, herniated discs. There was points in my life where I was paralyzed physically and couldn't walk. Basically picture energy just pushing on my body, trying to get me to wake up. I lived the path that people would classify as the wounded healer, not even knowing that I'm trying to break free from something. However, I did keep a journal, and I did pay attention, and nothing that they were saying was making sense. I kept getting offered disability. I kept getting offered medications, but the medications for fibromyalgia didn't work for me either. The medications, there's nothing for trigeminal neuralgia. Basically, that's a disease where you want to take your life. It hurts so bad. And my poor children, I was so scared to even have them touch me because I had a fear of touch and sticky. I didn't know that I had suffered so much abuse in my life because I had so many repressed memories that I couldn't access. Nor would I allow someone to do any type of hypnosis to pull those repressed memories out. I have the belief that if they want to come out, they're going to come out when I'm ready. And sometimes we're not ready to see what we've experienced. At this current moment in time, I live in Sedona, and I practice shamanic healing. I use medicines and other things, sound healing, and a variety of different techniques and methods, including exposure therapy, to be able to help people that struggle in the mental health arena. I've also been able to heal sociopathology. I've been able to heal many, many people because I walk into their reality with them. And when you're a great healer and you truly have an open heart, you don't judge. You don't put your labels on somebody else telling them what is wrong with them or how they need to change. And when I was placed in a hospital as a highly educated mental health clinician, not one clinician knew about real trauma. We lack trauma-informed care, and we lack the ability to handle people in a way with respect and dignity. You don't just medicate people that struggle because it makes your life easier. You walk with them and you hold them through their struggles. I was a successful clinician because I truly listened to my clients and I was present. And it wasn't about me, it was about them. Most people in the mental health field or even the helping professions, they have what I call codependency. They attach to the idea that people are attached to them. Most people that are healers also are wounded, which we know about. But how can you truly heal and find yourself when the person you're healing with wants you to attach to them? Feel free to go to my website, download my ebook. I practice what I call detachment. I teach you detachment theory, and I teach you my theory, which allows you to move your energy in a way where it puts you in control of your own body, your own healing. I also train people to access consciousness and bypass their mind. Our mind is what makes up logic, ideas, stories, and systems to make sense of our suffering. The truth is, sometimes people do awful things, and people hurt us. And that's it. And we can't explain why they do that. Trauma is the root cause of all of these things. People that have really, really, really intense trauma will end up hurting others. They end up as sociopaths. They end up as pedophiles. Or they end up on the opposite side, like myself, with a dissociative identity, not able to be in their body completely. Dissociative personality disorder is probably the only disorder that makes sense to me, besides things on the spectrum. And a lot of us have cellular trauma stored in our body, and we are born with it whether or not we like it. And that's because of our world, because of our atmosphere, because of our industries and our upbringing. Don't choose to be a product of your family, your friends, or stories that you develop through your life. Choose to be you. Because if you're striving to be a product, you're going to fail. Because you're a human being. And a human being deserves love, safety, and security. You also deserve to have an option to heal holistically, spiritually, with people that are going to hold safe space for you and allow you to be you without judgments. I know personally myself, as a clinician in the mental health field, I was judged worse than a lot of clients. And I also heard the behind the scenes. They have what you would call bias. amongst certain disorders and don't like to take them, which isn't right. If you're going to get in the field to healing people, then you heal people. That's it. And some people, they do benefit from medication, and they do benefit from this stuff because it's a brain disorder. And the good news is I have medicines that help those brain disorders. I have medicines that can help you heal holistically, so you don't have to be a victim to taking a medication for the rest of your life if you don't choose that route. Many times we're so disconnected with our human form because we can't hear it. And once you hear your human body, you honor it. And when you honor your human body, everything begins to align and your heart begins to open. And the second your heart gets open, so does your throat chakra and third eye. And this is how we bring spirit in. So if you're a highly sensitive person, an empath, an intuitive, or someone that's really, really struggled getting any help, feel free to reach out because I can hold that space for you here. And I've experienced it myself. And I've seen the worst and the best out of a lot of people. Healing's available, and it's for everybody, everywhere. And trauma's a real thing. And we don't deserve to suffer because we're holding on to somebody else's baggage or someone else's stories. I love you guys. I hope you have a phenomenal day. Thanks for watching this video. Blessings.